We're going up, up, up to the upper Marae, where stories lift and voices fly. Put your tea towels down, let your worries fade. Open the gates, let the memories cascade. In this podcast world, we give it our best. So grab your cup or come say hi, no jest. We're going up to the upper Marae, where conversations flow and spirits can't lie.
Kia ora and welcome to the Upper Marae, Whare Wānanga series. In this kōrero, we're sitting down with a Māori who've completed a PhD to talk about the stories behind the research, what they're doing now, and how the knowledge is carried in real life. Today I'm here with Dr. Alexander Stevens II, a senior Māori academic in clinical health at AUT and a clinician whose work in sexual violence recovery, mental health and addiction supports whānau and communities across Aotearoa. Kia ora, Alexander.
Kia ora, my friend, and thank you for putting your hand up to interview me. It'd be a very sad podcast if I was interviewing myself.
Yeah, right. I'll explain these series because this is the first episode.
So the vision for this series is that we're going to interview 500 Māori over the next X amount of years. Because there was a time, Sione, where you could count the amount of Māori with PhDs on one hand, and there were aspirational goals around how do we increase the number of Māori to reach having a PhD in a whole variety of sectors, so business, science, my area of health, with the idea of influencing change. So, having Māori determine the direction for Māori and where they're going.
Has this been done before?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I do think it's it's aspirational for me. I love to learn, as you well know, having got my third master's as well as PhD, but I think there's so much to learn from others, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be the first to go off the ranks or the last one.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, we've got to start somewhere. So, and here we are.
All right, then. I guess we'll hold it off with the first question.
Mm-hmm.
Take us back to the beginning. What was happening in your life when your PhD topic first emerged? And why did it become the kaupapa you chose to carry?
Yeah, I guess from your perspective, I was around when dinosaurs were.
Pre-AI.
Wow, can I just quickly say I am so grateful that I did my PhD before AI.
Yeah.
Because although AI is useful in developing ideas and content and structures, I think there'll be people that will be cheeky enough to try to do their PhDs and potentially masters solely using AI. So at least I can say hands on heart. All that hard work of doing it over 7 years,
you know what?
Was mine.
This
no one else but mine.
The series would be so interesting because you have a mixture of those pre-AI and those post-AI. So
yes, which is what I'm saying. So I'm old but not that old. So look, let me take you back. One of the things that I often say in other podcasts is that I got my first disclosure of sexual abuse when I was 16, and that disclosure really impacted on my life because subsequently that young man committed suicide a year later, and even though I tried to get him into a guidance counsellor, I was just ill prepared. I was 16, and yet it really did impact me. And then years later, for whatever reason, and I'm still not sure now, even in my early 40s, about what happened, I seem to get just a rate of high disclosures around sexual abuse. So I guess the guts of it is in my late 20s, early 30s, I decided that I wanted to do something about it, and I just finished doing my first Masters of Indigenous Studies at Otago, and I was working at rape prevention.
were you doing distance learning?
No, with Otago, yes. So that just got off the ranks, and I thought, well, I wanted to do something meaningful, and especially around sexual violence, working with our men, mental health addictions. And I just thought it's probably going to be a PhD. And at that stage, I argued that there were lots of services available for women, but few, if any, services. We're talking like 15 years ago.
Mm.
Yes, that's right, about 15 years ago. So, there's been some small changes made, but I wanted to make a bigger impact. So that's what first emerged me in this area. Um, and just the high rates. So, at the moment, we don't have consistent statistics around sexual abuse, but what I argued in my PhD was it's roughly 1 in 4 for our Māori tāne, 1 in 3 for our Māori wahine, and 1 in 5 Pacific who have been affected by sexual abuse in New Zealand.
High numbers.
Very high numbers. And can I say to you, sexual abuse doesn't have to... Most people assume that it's like a family member, or that it's some kind of stranger. But actually what we know is that it's more likely to be someone that you do know, not necessarily in the family, but it could be extended.
Yeah.
Like community circles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because what's that brief story you always refer to, just in regards to, what do you call a cemetery in Māori?
Urupa.
Urupa, yeah, where it's like generations.
Yeah, so that's a bit on hiatus at the moment. However, there is an aspirational goal by some iwi leaders to have their own whānau, their own family's urupas or cemetery, where they're free of mental health, addiction, suicide, and sexual abuse. So the short story is that they took me to the urupa and they showed me maybe 15 rows of previous family members, and the row in front had been hurt or abused by the row at the back, either by sexual abuse, family harm, mental health, and addictions. The row behind them had also been affected by mental health, addictions, family violence, sexual violence. So what they wanted was, what would it look like in 3 generations where there were no more rows affected by family harm, sexual abuse, mental health, and addictions. And it was so aspirational for me at that time. And they said, how do you think we'll make this happen? And in my head, I thought, I don't know, but let's find out.
Right.
Together.
I think this next question will be definitely important to ask, which is, after finishing your PhD, where did the journey take you next? What work are you doing now? And who are the people or communities that work is for?
Yeah. Gosh, that's a big question, my friend. After finishing my PhD, I ended up doing more work in our community, specifically supporting our bros around court reports. So for some of our men, they've gone to jail, not because they've sexually abused others, but they've done drugs, alcohol, and other forms of crime. For a whole raft of reasons, but what we do know with what research is there is that sexual abuse has been a contributing factor. So, for example, they may have been abused in childhood. They may have left school early because people label them as having behavioural issues. Behavioural issues can be defined in a whole spectrum of things. But often, and this is what was exciting within my PhD, is that primary school in particular, so from the ages of between 5 and 7, young boys were trying to tell their teachers this is what happened, and if they weren't believed, it would set them up for potential issues around either leaving school early, and if they left school early, they might not have captured reading and writing, which then got them into trouble in lots of other ways. Or conversely, if they weren't believed, then they can act out, lash out, which then people would label them as being, behavioural problems, whereas I would now look at it as being a strong motivational factors were based, their behaviour were based on the trauma that they had experienced.
Yeah. And sometimes the way they're trying to communicate, it just looks different, right?
And this is what I say, boys and men communicate different to our girls and wahine, or women. That's not a bad thing, right? Communication is just different. And so our men, especially in the original PhD that I did were
The
very
original,
clear.
The original PhD.
Well, because when I look at when I talk about my original PhD, what I mean is when I look at the original research that was done.
Oh, your master's?
No,
Oh.
just purely the PhD.
Okay.
The original research, and then I've scaffolded off that and looked at different areas.
Yeah.
But when I look at the original work done in my PhD, men were clear that they were trying to communicate, but they weren't believed.
Yeah.
That people just couldn't believe that the idea of boys being abused, and especially by women, because that's what my PhD also showed.
Yeah.
All of them had been abused by women first.
Yeah, it's interesting that your PhD, I think, because when I read it, your PhD is probably like one of the earlier literature that states women being offenders. Now there's these, what was it? The Whanakatea report.
Oh yes, that was the Royal Abuse Commission.
Yeah, after that they published that and they mentioned like people like the nuns and other females were abusers.
Yes.
And now there's a short doco on TVNZ that shares it, and then people are actually speaking about being abused by females. So it's interesting that we're getting these small bits of literature coming out saying women as offenders, but
they are.
Yeah.
Can I just say to you, when we look at offenders, that's a whole different
area topic because it gets complex.
Yeah, it does get complex. However, I wasn't deliberately looking for boys that had been abused by women. It just so happened.
It's there.
That it was there.
Talk to me about like when you've heard it was a female, like your first female, like.
Yeah. So for context, I've been doing therapy now for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Mental health, addictions, violence, suicide prevention, because that's the stuff that kind of
comes up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to be frank with you, most disclosures are still from men, that have been,
because that's who you primarily work with there.
Yeah. So men disclose that they had been abused by other men, and it would be occasionally I would get female. So it would be a surprise, but not a complete surprise, because.
But walk me through the first case where you were told it was a female.
In the research?
No, I think just in general in your counselling.
Yeah, I do. I just remember being surprised because when I was doing my initial kind of working towards counselling, which was at Manukau Institute of Technology, most of the questions were kind of geared towards males being offenders and not women.
Did you question it at that time?
Not really, because I mean, at the time I was young, so I was in my early 20s, and I just thought, oh, well, this must be...
This is true. This is
true.
Yeah.
However, as I continued in the sector, I came to realise that actually both genders kind of played a part. And, I tended to hear stories that they were male offenders. I would hear stories about female offenders. And looking back, I do wonder if some of our guys that we'd worked with had actually hesitated for fear of judgment, which came up also through my research. So partly this is why I wanted to do a PhD. I wanted to name spaces. I wanted to find out what is happening here. One of the key things that made me jump into doing doctoral research was that our men in particular wanted to get help looking at from a kaupapa Māori perspective or a tangata Pacific perspective, and those things weren't there. So I thought, actually, if we're going to do this, what would it look like? Which we might talk about this later. Led me to do at AUT. There's 3 different options to get, through a PhD process,
pathways.
And I chose a creative pathway.
Pathway 3,
format 3, pathway 3, where I wanted to design a website specifically for Māori and Pacific men, support people in community services affected by sexual abuse, and write an accompany document which we call a thesis.
Oh, so a company document is the...
Yeah, so for this particular pathway, you have to come up with an idea or a design, what we call an artifact, and then you had to write about it. The emphasis should have been on the artifact or the website, But because
Oh,
I am
right.
an overachiever, I wrote a 60,000 word thesis and
With the other. Well,
with
good for you.
website. Yeah, and I'll tell you why though, because I genuinely feel as Māori, you have to work 2 to 3 times harder to prove yourself.
Agreed.
And there was nothing that was going to stop me
Yeah.
from getting it across the line eventually. 7 years later, but we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this leads on to the next question quite well, which is, can you share a moment or situation where you realized the PhD had changed how you think, lead, or show up for your whānau, hapu, iwi, or community?
There were a couple epiphanies. One was when I interviewed 29 out of 31 men had been abused
By
by
females.
Correct.
Right, yeah, I remember that one.
That was an epiphany.
And that was on the Māori.
Te Karere.
Yeah.
It was on the news. Some people booed me. Other people said that it was bullshit.
So sad, eh? So sad.
It was, and yet I thought this is what's stopping men from coming forward.
Yeah.
This perpetual belief.
Yeah.
But also, their words, not mine, that they saw themselves as being a posse, and again, that's not meant to be offended. This is what some of the men were saying, that they were seen as, and when we use that word, they meant weak. They meant that people wouldn't believe them, that they might, be BS. So there were a lot of loaded things that happened. And I remember speaking to one of my colleagues who said that maybe we should do a media release. I didn't realise at that stage how wide and far that had gotten. Yet, I hadn't quite finished my PhD, so it was a good way of promoting
yourself,
myself, and the research.
Yeah.
And then when at the end of this process you have like a viva, different universities have different approaches, but essentially I was interviewed by 3 different experts about my research.
Yeah.
So I thought, and then I could say, well, part of this research has hit the media. This is what people are saying.
Yeah.
So
I think in terms of the way you think,
yes,
how's it different now to when it was pre-PhD?
That people have been affected by sexual abuse is an epidemic.
Right. Okay.
It's massive.
Public health.
It's not even a public health issue. Yes, it is, but it's a community issue. It's a whānau issue. It affects people on multiple levels.
Yep. From a
medical perspective. Well, because it can. What we know is not always, but people who have been affected by sexual abuse have things like post-traumatic stress disorder. There is connections to schizophrenia, depression, bipolar. What I'm saying to you is, just because you've been sexually abused doesn't mean, you'll have a mental illness. But what we know is you've got a higher disposition towards it, and if you combine it with addictions, meth, for example, or marijuana, then you exponentiate. So you increase the chances that you will end up with some kind of trauma. I'm now working with a lot of men as a result of that PhD that have got complex PTSD or CPTSD.
Right.
So my PhD kind of opened a pathway, I suppose, for me to, like I've indicated before, to advocate for our men in the court system, where they might have had charges around, I don't know, drink driving, for example, or family harm, so like violence. And one of the things that I say when I'm talking to the court through clinical reports is that their historical sexual trauma is not an excuse for what they're doing or have done, but it is a way of understanding that these are the things that have led towards their current actions. And one of the things that I do ask, and I do include PhD on my clinical report or letter to the judge, is asking for an opportunity for counselling, for therapy, not just throwing a book at their forehead and being sent into jail, depending on what the crime is. It's all contextual, but giving them an opportunity to be able to find a way forward. And for myself, having a PhD in that title, the judges are much more likely to take you seriously.
Right.
Last year, as you know, I had 8 or 9 different cases in total, so it's basically one case almost a month of working with the courts around providing therapeutic care. And the judges always factored the judges were saying, I thank you, Dr. Siemens, this is incredibly useful. Knowing that this was my area of specialty and what I'm knowing.
That's important, eh? Judges see loads of cases, and it's like,
yes,
definitely make some changes there.
Yes, and one of the things that has come up, especially in that court, is being able to say to the judge, who are you? And being able to say, I specialise in, at the moment, until someone takes over, to be able to say, I am the foremost expert in sexual violence recovery for Māori and Pacific men in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Oh.
For now.
It's
a terrible thing, really. I wish I've shared this, I wish I could have been
doctor in happiness.
That's what I wanted to be in. Or fine arts and museum.
Oh, yes.
I wanted to look after, like, kakahu, Māori cloaks, korowai, hatu's taiā, but no, I didn't. I'm specialising in sexual violence recovery. No regrets, though. I graduated with my PhD...
2022.
Yeah, so 4 years ago. And I reckon I've worked with maybe close to 200 guys.
Right.
And the application of my knowledge from my PhD has really helped strengthen how I engage, but also how do I teach other people, like my mentees, and when I do workshops, like when I was in Northland last year at a male conference.
Oh, yeah.
And even though my PhD is 4 years old, it's just as relevant now as it was before. Then. Yeah. So
there's been a lot of news articles popping up.
Yes, and it's also given me a chance to be on different podcasts. And I do think that having a PhD allows you an opportunity to advocate for whānau and community on multiple levels than if I had just stuck with my master's times 3.
Right. Was there a point where you felt the weight of holding doctoral knowledge as Māori?
Yes.
What did that responsibility look and feel like in practice?
So, as being a foremost expert in a subject like sexual violence, I've often been involved in court cases. I've worked in government sector as an external contractor. And so people do either reluctantly or openly engage with you in your knowledge. So when I talk, I'm mindful that it's one person. I might be the only Māori in the room. So I'm always careful about using blank statements. One of the things that you'll see, certainly when you do your PhD eventually, is that I'm very careful about using absolute statements.
Yeah. That's right, because your responsibility.
Yes, my go-to is the evidence at the moment suggests A, B, C, and D. I don't like saying, well, for Māori people, it's A, B, C, and D. It's too general, and knowledge changes over time.
It does.
So what was considered relevant, say, 20, 25 years ago, might not be relevant, in the next 25 years. So I'm very clear that in this moment of time, based on the evidence, this is what we know. And so I'm always mindful about how I write things, how I teach people, but making sure that what I'm teaching them is still current, and it is.
Nice.
What was that question? There's one more thing that I thought might come up.
Oh, from the question I asked?
Yeah.
Was there a point where you felt the weight of holding doctoral knowledge as Māori? What did that responsibility look and feel like in practice?
Yes, so the bigger one for me that came up, and again, this is something that was a surprise, is that men don't want to be called victims and survivors.
Bros.
Yes, bros is probably a better word.
Yeah.
And so, and so that's a good example. 25 years ago, victim and survivor, there were 3 key words: victim, survivor, offender.
Yeah.
Right? But when working with our men, and this is one of the things we have to be careful about, men don't want to be called victims or survivors. And it's not on us as psychologists, psychotherapists, clinicians, counsellors, social workers.
What the term is, right?
Exactly. Who are we to determine how you identify in that space? So the word bro kept coming up, which was brother. Another brother who had experienced this.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been mindful of is how do we hold this space? So when people go, oh, you work with victims, it's like, no, I work with bros.
Yeah.
And who knows whether that might catch on.
Yes,
that might be
right.
like the new language that might be used.
I mean, with these younger kids coming around, language changes every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also, we have to be careful because for some, not all, and that's a good example of me kind of nuancing the way I'm saying this, what you call victim and offender might actually be whānau member.
Right.
Or extended whānau, extended family. So, you need to be careful about how we... So that, anyway, was an example of being able to use that knowledge and making sure that I was, using it in a responsible way in my practice, which I still am. So when I teach other health professionals at AUT, it's about being mindful about the terms and terminology that we use.
Agreed. Looking back, can you tell a story about something in the PhD journey that was misunderstood or misrepresented, particularly from a Māori perspective?
So if we looked at that story, around 29 out of 31 had disclosed that they had been first abused by women. The misrepresentation was that, for me, that I was doing it for attention, that I was doing it to try to get in the media.
That's really?
So some of the questions that came up was, are you serious about this, or are you just trying to get your name out there?
Right.
Well, my response was, who makes this up?
Yeah, this was a journal.
If I was going to make it up, I'd be having a better chance of saying chocolate fish cures trauma, which is somewhat true because chocolate is quite good to make you feel better.
Cadbury and all that would have definitely backed your research.
but to say something which I did based on the evidence, knowing that it was going to be unpopular, I would rather have made up some other easier lie.
Yeah. Right?
So you've got to hold your guns. So that was an example of being misrepresented. There were also, how am I going to word this? There were also wahine, that there were females that were saying that this knowledge would do damage and restrict funding that they would get for their own organisations, because it would be then spent towards men. So when you're on a panel and someone says, Alexandra, it's not, that your work might take funding that we need for our own services to support men. My response was, well, you just said 2 questions ago that supporting whānau is everything. Or whānau order is the way to go. So how does that work? Are you saying when you're talking about whānau, you excluding men from the narrative?
Yeah, when do boys as children move forward from boys to men?
Exactly. And then you get silence. But afterwards they come up to you, how dare you throw me under the bus? And I was like, Kare, you threw yourself under the bus, the waka, the van.
Right.
And then I said to them, I'm not apologising. The moment that we start saying that whose trauma is worse, we're going down a pointless road. And
Why are we competing? Why are we competing? It's unfortunate that they cut the budget cuts
recently, but that was full stop across the board.
No, there was something specific to sexual violence.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So across, so it wasn't just like wahine services or tāne services. They reduced funding for all services. And this is the next point. Well, this is why I think for me doing a PhD is vital, because you'll look, this is I'm getting wound up, so give me a second.
Right.
I'm just like when you have a PhD, you have a responsibility. Some people that I can think of outside Māori circles do it purely for a title. For me, it was never about the title. It was about how do we find representation to support on this particular topic. And so when funding cuts and those things come up, I always think to myself, what can I do as someone who has a PhD to try to influence change, right? What I also recognise is politicians come and go, but having a PhD or doctorate is forever.
What was your other one? No. What was your initial one you told me? Managers come and go?
Well, this also comes from the fact that my previous management in government wanted me to change some of my research findings.
Yeah. Oh,
Because it
okay.
didn't reflect on them. And I was like, no, I have a PhD. I'm not going to change what the research says.
Yeah.
To which, that particular manager spoke about that, it would be unfortunate because it would reflect badly on me. To which I said, managers come and go, but having my PhD is forever.
Ooh.
And I was right because he left afterwards. Now he does a completely different job.
Right.
But I'm still doing the mahi. Because your reputation, Sionia, is all you've got at the end of the day.
Right.
And I want my reputation to be, like, I'm no angel, right? But I want my reputation to be sound, academic, kaupapa Māori focused. Did I answer the question?
I think it leads on great to the next question, but I think so. Did you want me to go back to the old question or the new one?
Whatever one. You just take me on the journey.
Yes. Can you describe a time when balancing academic expectations and community obligations challenged your wairoa or well-being? How did you respond?
So my PhD took 7 years. Normally, he says in air quotes, normally it's a 3-year journey.
Right.
But at the time...
This was pre-COVID as well.
This was during...
Oh, during... Wait,
before.
Oh, okay.
During.
Yeah, and then after. Yeah.
So it all started off fine. I had what we call a snowball effect.
Yeah.
So a snowball effect is you're interviewing one, they might refer you to another person, so on and so forth. And so it's like a snowball. All these people were coming forward, rolling down the hill. I thought, oh, great, this is doing well. But then life happens. Yeah. So, there was a period where my dad died. COVID hit.
Yeah.
My best mate, was out of the picture. So for a whole lot of reasons. So there were just life in general got in the way. Plus, doing the PhD full time, and I was working 2.5 jobs.
2.5?
2.5 jobs. I was working at Lifeline. I was working in public health, and then I was also doing my counselling practice.
All right.
As well.
Oof.
So all this stuff was happening.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to my mate Nigel. We were going for a walk, albeit 5 meters apart when we were going through COVID?
Yeah, sure, we'll call it 5 meters.
Just whatever. Yeah, whatever. It was like
social distancing.
So that was it.
Yeah.
5 meters. It must well be 5 kilometers. But everyone was in their personal bubbles. Do you remember this?
Right.
And I said to him, bro, I don't think I can do this anymore.
Yeah.
I think Dad dying and COVID and my own health. Sorry, because then I got vaccinated and then had a heart complication.
Is that when your heart complications
started?
Yeah,
I got
COVID.
We're not even going down that avenue,
right,
but just saying that as a result of the vaccination, I got heart failure.
Yeah.
So then I had to deal with that as well.
True.
So then by then I just thought that I'm done. Like tapping out. I've got. And Nigel said something to me which gave me the nourishment to keep going. He said to me, you've got all these stories, and if you pull out, who's going to tell their narrative? And I remember it was motivational, and at the same time I was thinking, awesome, this is what emotional blackmail feels like. But I look back now, and I think he was right.
Yeah.
If I had pulled out, I would have done a disservice to those men, because many of the stories that they shared, they'd never shared before. It was the very first time. And their stories, I've built a website, so that's part of my PhD, which is still getting hits now, which is great. I'm doing trainings across the country using all that data. And so, yes, there are hard times, like anything worthwhile. Of course, there's going to be highs and lows. Tides will come in and out. Yeah. And yet, I just thought he's right. And that was the last bit that gave me the encouragement to just keep going. And then once that happened, and this is what I sometimes say to my other colleagues and certainly students, is that there's a part where it just kind of rolls down the hill, and then before you know it, you're at the finish line. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened with me. As soon as I remember, I think it was It was one section that I had to do. And as soon as I did it, I was so excited because I thought the whole draft thesis is done, so 60,000 words. And I remembered this is a very nerd thing. So APA referencing is what I currently use. And I worked on completing my thesis back to back. So for some people, they send in drafts per chapter. I didn't do that. I wrote the whole thing before I sent it off to my supervisor. But I wanted to make sure all my references were accurate. So I spent... This is pre-AI, right? I spent 7 hours back to back. I finished everything at 4:30 in the morning. Wrote a Facebook post. Said I'm getting 2 hours sleep. And then submitted it.
Oof.
Yes.
Tough times.
But, well, maybe that's the thing that I want to say, doing a PhD. And this is... So, what I've heard, I don't know how accurate this is, but PhDs are hard, and they should be.
Yeah.
Not otherwise, anyone can just get them, you know. Can't have anyone just walking through the doors, he says. 50% of people will pull out doing a PhD.
That is a high failure rate.
Yes.
50%.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And like I said, it shouldn't be easy. But with the right support, you can do it. But I remember thinking, I refuse to be the 50% that's gonna. Even though I contemplated it, I mean, I don't think I was actually serious. I just needed to say it out loud. But I'm glad that I did.
Yeah, and shout out to Nigel.
Shout out to Nigel.
Because man, if you didn't finish, I would have not met you.
Well, that's true.
But
do you remember? Like, and I've said this to you before. You know, when other people's... So when you graduate, when I graduated, the title came up and people would...
See it, yep.
Yep. And do you remember how you had that guy before me who did like the tangerine and peptides?
Yeah, I'd never forget him. But
do you remember mine didn't get the same hit?
The same hit?
The same applause.
Well, because it was a left field.
Yeah, it was like pitch. Standing tall, a psychological approach of working with Māori Pacific men affected by sexual abuse.
Violence, yeah.
And then people went,
like we had, yoga.
Yes.
Sexual violence.
Yes. And I just remember thinking,
I think you gave them whiplash.
Well, yes, and as I've said to you, even then, I got people that messaged me with I've been abused and I need help, and I was at the graduation.
Yeah,
what can you do? So,
not me though. I think I completely missed it. I was like, "Oh, Māori Pacific, nice."
Yes, you wanted to look at it from an e-technology perspective, not. And then when I messaged, I was like, "You realise that we're doing e-technology and sexual violence recovery."
Yeah.
And then you thought, "Oh, that's nice, mā loa pito." And I was like, "Wowzers."
Anyways, we have those charity.
but what I'm saying to you, it's still got you on your own journey. So even, so you've become a mental health and drug and alcohol clinician.
Yeah.
You want to work in the field of sexual violence, and I think great, because one of the things about a PhD for me is about passing on the knowledge that I've learned. Any Māori or Pacific worth their grain and salt, should look about the next generation. So for me, I try my best to think of 7 generations.
You might
after
be.
Me.
I wonder if you're one of the very few who actually has, like
that kind of mindset.
No, that influenced someone to do a PhD because they finished their PhD. I wonder. I'll be interested in seeing the next lot of those you interview.
Yeah,
seeing that kind of impact.
I just think, look, PhDs aren't everybody's cup of tea. Not everyone needs to do it.
Yeah.
Yet, as Māori, as Ngāpui and Muri Whenua, all the way from up north, I feel like in order to help manaaki our Māori across the rohe, across the country, I want to make academic informed decisions blended with my community clinical experience. I don't want to have someone in Wellington who's not Māori determine our course and destiny. Certainly help along.
Yeah.
There's the dishes in the marae. Get going and dry them while let our Māori academics. Yeah. But it is a privilege. And that's an interesting space to be in, because as Māori sometimes we acknowledge that we don't have the same equities, that other people do. But when it comes to a PhD, that's a whole different, because you are at the table.
Yeah.
And you do have to advocate. Yeah. Especially with those bloody psychologists.
Anyways, on to the next question. If you could sit down with your younger self.
Can I just quickly, I'm going to put this in there since I'm not going to edit this out.
All right.
I should say our Tauiwi psychologists, not our Māori psychologists that think that they know better and try to tell me things. And I'm like, listen, you take your bachelor's. Well, and they tell you stuff, and I'm like, no. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
You will, with love, you will listen to my ako, my knowledge, and you will apply it because mine's grounded in this, yours is in this, yours is, say, very Western in your thinking, and it's actually incredibly harmful. That's not going to happen.
I mean, there's a lot of literature that supports that, too.
Yes, but I thought I'd better put it out there before my Māori psychologist listen to this thinking, well, I'm not participating in this if he's going to go and mock us.
Well, it's good to make it clear.
Thank you.
It's good to make it clear. But if you could sit down with your younger self or a Māori starting a PhD today, what story would you tell them about what lies ahead that no one warned you about?
I'd say, don't worry. So I've invented a time machine, so you're going to be fine. If I go all the way back to the younger version, you know what I'd say? Eat less and exercise more, and you might live a long and fruitful life to be able to help the next generation. I would say that you're going to end up doing a PhD, and that part of that PhD you'll help many, many people, and that time has huge responsibilities attached to it. Yeah. It's not to be taken lightly. This is honestly what I think, because some people call me Doc, and it's an honor, but that title carries huge responsibilities, and it's more than just a title. It really is for me about, for example, this is what I say in my younger version, you must carry yourself to the standard that other people carry you. And when you're as heavy as me, you don't want too many people carrying you. So, but and also know that, and like I said to you, when you get PhD as a title, it does carry mana. For me, it's a nice to have, but and generally speaking, our Māori whānau kind of look at you and they want your help as a clinician, just being a doctor is an added bonus. But can I say to you, one of the things that I do regularly in Hodaki is to a men's group. Yeah. And I was talking about how some of our men aren't ready to get help, so they don't turn up for their counselling appointment. And one of the tāne said to me, he's like, if you had the foremost expert in the sexual violence in the field, I would want to absolutely use every resource that they had to get better. Yeah. One of the things I had to gently remind them is that you can't force people into a var or a wā, time and space. They're ready when they're going to be ready. However, it was nice to at least hear a brief compliment about being used. I was thinking, partnership. I would work in partnership with, I wouldn't use them, but yeah.
I guess another warning is the cost of taking on mentees, the financial cost.
Well, look, as you know, I also do mentorship. Yeah.
Was this as a result of PhD as well?
No, I'd already offered mentorship for a long time.
Okay. Right.
Yet, getting my PhD now means that one of my aspirational goals for the mentees that I work with is I'd like them to have a minimum of a master's for two reasons. When you hit master's levels, your salary naturally goes up.
Whoop, whoop.
So, average New Zealander earns about 55,000, give or take. Yeah. And I don't bemoan that, but for me it's about how do we get our Māori and Pacific ahead. We know that academia can
be a pathway.
Can be. Not, like I said, not for everyone. Yeah. Right? So I don't want to do a takahi. It's not my intention to insult anyone. It just if that's the path that you want to be on, no mai haere mai. But there might be other paths that you might want to choose, and that's fine as well. Different strokes for different folks. Yeah.
Coming to the end of the first episode of the series.
Yep.
Is what question would you ask the next person being interviewed in your next podcast series?
I'm going to keep it easy. My question so now I'll take over, so thanks Tony for being the spark. It's like the Olympics, right? We've got to start a fire somewhere.
Yeah.
So the next question that I'm going to ask will be, why did you choose that specific university?
All right then.
Because if I ask her any other question, who knows where? I'll go there.
Wait, well, so why did you choose AUT? Well, out of all the options?
Well, that's a whole different. Well, okay, I'll keep
Briefly.
it short.
Keep it short.
I did it for two reasons. One is because I was told after I did my masters that, long story short, someone sent an email and CC'd me in. They shouldn't have CC'd me in. In the email, it said it would be a cold day in hell before he'll get his acceptance letter into AUT. And I emailed back and I said, well, someone better dress warmly because I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Right? And so to me, it was just sheer defiance. I was like, I will show you what happens if you even dream of blocking me. So there was that determination, like, I'm going to get it. Yeah. The other reason is because I wanted to do I wanted to create something. I just didn't want to write a thesis. Or AUT, they've got like a part. So that's pathway when you just write 60 to 100,000 words, in a thesis or a big book. The second optional pathway 2, format 2, is journal writing. So you might do between 2 to 7 journals, publish them ideally, and then you include that as part of your overall body of work.
Right.
I just, no, boring. I wanted to do the third option, which AUT offers, like I said, which is a creative pathway where you write about the thing that you're creating, and then you design the thing, the artifact. So I designed a website that would support our bros, support people, communities about the topic of sexual abuse. I got our men and support people to, through Talanoa, through kōrero, wanted to actually understand what are the questions that you've always thought about but have been too ashamed, too whakamā to ask. Like, why me? Or how do I help my bro? So I just felt like the AUT offered this pathway 3 would be the perfect thing for me. Sure, I fired my supervision team the first slot, which is a whole different thing. But the point is that I did it.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, right? You've got to have the spark to keep going, because life gets in the way. And the more I think about this, I'm glad that I did it. But going all the way back, that's why I chose AUT. Yes. If the University of Auckland had offered a pathway, I probably would have done it. Yeah. I seriously thought about doing the University of Otago as I'm pointing to my masters, because it was such a beautiful experience with them. However, you had to be in Otago, to be able to do their PhD, which was a PhD in Indigenous studies. The other thing that I think about it is that I just wanted to do a general PhD now, because I just thought, well, I don't want people to scratch. You didn't go, what is a doctorate of Indigenous studies? Also, very quickly, and I haven't spoken about this, I did think about going to what's the
Victoria? Canterbury?
No, Awanui-Arangi, which is a kaupapa Māori.
Do they do PhD?
They do. Yes, they do. Right. Yes, in fact, some of the foremost experts in Māori work at Awanui-Arangi.
Oh, true.
However, it was a really interesting kōrero, which I don't think we'll go into full discussion here, which was in society, and this is the racism and the discrimination that comes up, which would be taken on face value.
Oh, okay.
So can I just say PhDs should be on the same level, and yet in a Pākehā system, they want the University of Auckland, the Otagos, the AUTs. When I look back, I would love to have done if I was going to purely work in Māori and not work in a Pākehā system, I probably would have done Awanui-Arangi. I acknowledge that I work across the board. However, if that's your jam and you want to go down that path, then I recommend that you do it now. But it was different when I contemplated doing mine almost 10 years ago.
Okay. Well, I guess that ends this episode.
Very good.
Looking forward to seeing the next one. But would you like to close us off?
Yeah, I guess for me, my thoughts are, if you're feeling inspired by the idea of doing a PhD It is a long road ahead, but it's totally worth it. And who knows, you in 3 or 4 years, you might be interviewing. Well, I'm aiming for 500. I don't even know 50 Pacific with doctorates in this country. But as Tongan, though, you have the highest per capita, so you might end up going to
Tonga.
Yes, and interviewing them there.
But I'll pass on this baton to you.
Very good, which I gladly accept. And now I'll go find
our next
academic Māori.
Yes.
Thank you, my brother. Kia ora.